My name is Cameron Smith. I'm here with Representative Bill Keller from the 184th District, and he's represented that district for the years 1993 to 2018. 184th is in Philadelphia County. Thank you for being with me here today.
Thank you, Cameron.
I'd like to start at the beginning. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, and your family life?
Well, I was born at 334 Emily Street in South Philadelphia. I still live on the same street.
Really?
Typical South Philly. My sister lives a block away. My brother lives 2 blocks away. And, it's typical of our neighborhood. Everybody stays close. And
Can you tell me a little bit more about South Philly?
well, South Philly now is changing, but for years it was a blue-collar, hard-working neighborhood, middle class. Everybody went to the same schools. Everybody went to the same vacation spots. It was it was really a close-knit, tight neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about your education, high school and college?
Well, of course, in our neighborhoods, and mostly in Philly, you would go to the local parochial school, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Then we would go to Bishop Newman. It's now Newman Goretti. They combined the boys and girls school. And then I went to LaSalle.
And what did you study there?
I studied general business.
Was your family politically active?
No, not really. I got politically active South Philly politics always revolved around the wards, right? So you would have, ward leader fights and structures, and then you'd have to fight over the committeeman spot. I don't think that happens much anymore. But back then, it was really just something we did to, it was part of what we did in the neighborhood. If you got involved, it would always center around the ward structure.
So how did you get involved, and what led you to become a Democrat?
Oh, always a Democrat, from the time I registered with Democrats. My parents were Democrats. My grandparents were Democrats, Roosevelt Democrats. It was just what we did in South Philly.
Can you tell me more about your professional, after school, your professional life, your career? I understand you were a longshoreman for a long period of time. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
After I graduated college, we looked around. I worked in the waterfront since I was 16 years old. That's another thing we did in the neighborhood. That was the main source of jobs in the neighborhood, was being a longshoreman. And back then, it was booming. There were ships coming in and out every day, and funny, you can't work till you're 18. We knew the kid that worked in the rectory. We would give him $1. He'd give us a blank baptismal certificate. I think the statute of limitation has passed on that. Yeah. And we would fill it out, and that's how we were able to work down the waterfront at 16.
Okay. What was the waterfront like at that time?
It was hard work. It was intensive. Cargo didn't come in containers then. There weren't any containers. It was just the beginning of the container phase, and everything would come in the holds of ships loose. So you had to go down and pick it up and put it on a pallet. And it's the old, on the waterfront you would see that. That's how it was back then.
Did you see a lot of technological change on the waterfront?
Yes, yes. You could watch it happen, year by year. It was technology changing, and even till today, it's still changing.
Okay. Were you involved in the International Longshoremen's Association?
I was.
Or a version of it?
It's it, the ILA. I was involved in union politics, and was elected a couple times to go to the international conventions and all. Yeah.
Was that kind of your in towards the more broader state politics?
Well, I guess it was just part of what we did down there. most of it was a lot of fighting. Not, it wasn't amicable solutions, but
Was it amongst each other or
oh yeah,
with others?
No, it was you know, same thing. You know, everybody had different sides promoting different people into office, and
Sure.
I guess that was good training.
I can imagine. And how was your just overall experience in an organized labor union? You said there was a lot of, I don't want to call it infighting necessarily, but disagreements.
Oh yeah, but I think that's everywhere. We go up on the House floor, we'll see it today. I mean, that's not unusual, but the unions, I believe, are the only thing that's keeping the middle class alive right now, and I've seen it there. Like I said, after I graduated college, I had been working in the summers down the waterfront, and after I graduated college, I couldn't find a job paying anywhere near probably a third of what I was making down the waterfront. So that's why I just stayed. Oh, my mother hollered at me every day, but
Yeah, that'll help.
but it was, I mean, it was really, I think, if I remember correctly, my mother made me get a job at Seaboard Manufacturing. I think we were making 90 cents an hour, right? I think I worked there like 3 days, and then I just went back down to waterfront. We were making $5 an hour. So
It's hard to argue with that.
she did.
Fair, fair. I also understand, maybe not so much in the professional side, but you were involved with the mummers in Philadelphia.
I'm still involved with the mummers.
I'm not as well versed. I'm from the west side of the state. Can you tell me a little bit about mummers and their legacy?
I think the mummers are another thing that keeps that neighborhood tight. It's just, you know, it's the base. What our purpose is to go out New Year's Day, and we go in a parade New Year's Day. But you work all year to get to that point. And, you know, it's kind of ridiculous when you think of it, all the money you spend just for one day. But that's not it. It's the camaraderie that every club has, and each club has between each other. That's a friendly competition when you go out New Year's Day. But I tell people, you know, they say, oh, you know, you still see your friends from grade school? Yeah, every Monday night up the club. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the truth. You still have the friends you had when you were in grade school, high school, because of the mummers. It is really one of the backbones of the neighborhood. I'll tell you a story. We were trying to get into the convention center instead of going out in the street every year. So we wanted to try to get into the convention center. I had to go to, Ed Rendell was the mayor then, so I had to go to the mayor. And he says, Billy, why should I do that? You know, it's just going to be problems. You know, everything's a problem with the mummers. Why should I do that? I said, Mayor, why you should do it? I said, look, Philadelphia is a city of neighborhoods. I said, and I want you to look at two different neighborhoods. I said, 2nd Street is where I live, and 30th Street, it's only 28 blocks away. I said, we have, everything's the same. We go to the same schools. We're a blue collar, hardworking neighborhood, have the same problems, alcohol, drugs, everything. We're identical. I said, you're losing one neighborhood, 30th Street. They were starting to, the neighborhood was starting to go down. I said, look at the other, and look at our neighborhood, 2nd Street. I said, that's one of the best neighborhoods you have in the city. It's an up-and-coming neighborhood. I said, the only difference I can tell, and I live it every day, is the mummers. The mummers keep us together. People don't move because their New Year's club, their mummers club is in the neighborhood. Their wives want to go to Jersey. They don't go to Jersey. They refuse to go to Jersey. They'll buy a summer house down the shore, down Wildwood, but they won't leave the neighborhood because of the mummers. And I made the point to him, and he let us go into the convention center. We're still there today. I think this is our 25th year.
Very cool. There have been some controversy around the mummers. Do you think that's warranted at all, or it certainly seems like the positives outweigh the negatives? Oh
yeah,
what little negatives there are.
Yeah, I haven't seen a negative. You know, some people act up, but you know, comparatively, it's nothing compared to the whole there's thousands and thousands of mummers that go every year, and it's growing. We're getting people from outside the neighborhood that are starting clubs. I think it's that tradition. It goes back to colonial times. So I mean, it's something that's always been in our neighborhood, and hopefully it will always be there. I think it's. If you could point to one thing that's different about our neighborhood than anybody else, I think it's the mummers.
That'd be it. Okay. What made you to move kind of towards your political life? What made you decide to run for the House?
Well, like I said, I was the committeeman in the ward, and believe it or not, Billy Adolph's been my friend since high school. We met down in Wildwood. He was a lifeguard, and I was down there in the summer. And we always talked politics. Billy was involved in politics in Delaware County. So I was just a committeeman. We would always talk the day after the election. We would talk about, what happened, how's this happening, what's going on, the results of the election. And a Republican won my seat in the 184th in the South Philly. It was the first time I think people could ever remember. I get a call the next day. I'm talking to Billy Adolph. He said, "Go down there, put your name in." He said, "Because that seat's going to be very, very hard for us to hold." He said, that's going to be an opportunity for you to look at." And that's what I did.
So is that easy?
So I blame him.
What was your first campaign like?
It was rough. It was a pretty tough campaign. The incumbent was Connie McHugh. She was the Republican. They wanted to hold on to the seat, and Vince Fumo, Senator Fumo, he wanted the seat because the House was very close at that time, and he said we're going to go win that seat. And I started knocking on doors in February, and we just it was expensive, and at the end we won. I mean, it was knockdown, drag out.
Were there a lot of outside forces involved?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like nobody was that involved until it meant something, and then everybody got involved. Labor, I mean, politicians. It was something, and it was it's funny too. He became my great friend, John Purcell. He was the head of the Republican campaign committee, right? Mm-hmm. So it was pretty rough. I remember we're sitting in our office and we're waiting. They're saying, "Oh, there's going to be a negative piece coming out." I said, "Yeah, okay, so what? I'm a longshoreman. What am I going to?" So we're sitting there having lunch, and the mailman comes in. And he gives us the piece. I open it up and look at it. I'm going, push the sandwich away. From that point on, I lost 20 pounds by the end of the election. And then, like I said, Purcell became my great friend. We used to laugh about the pieces he would send out about it.
Were they pretty?
They were pretty negative. You talk about negative.
Mm-hmm.
And all I kept saying, "That's not true." Everybody said, "What's that got to do with it?"
Do you have any campaigns that were memorable besides your first?
Well, the first was bad. Then we had, South Philly politics. Then I had 2 challenges from within the party. Mm-hmm. And, they're what they usually are.
Have you faced more challengers within the party than outside the party recently?
Well, real challenges, yeah.
Sure. And do you recall how you felt on your first swearing-in day? Or any memorable moments from that day?
Well, no. I mean, it was great. The family came up, and it was just a great. It was just a great time. Coming from the waterfront and being sworn in, it was really.
Had you been to the Capitol before?
I had only been to the Capitol. I remember I was a kid. We were playing weight football. I must have been, I don't know, 12 years old, maybe 11 years old, and we came to the Capitol. That was the one time. Then I came up for the campaign. That's the only time I had been in the Capitol.
Quite a big change then.
Big change from on deck of a ship, I'll tell you that.
Can you describe, you already did a little bit, your district, the geography, and the people of the South Philadelphia neighborhood?
Yeah, like I said, it really was centered on the waterfront and all the ancillary jobs that came from the waterfront, and manufacturing along in the neighborhood. There was Publickers was a big employer, and there were all little factories all up and down. So it was blue collar, hardworking.
Is it still similar today?
It is changing, but the waterfront is still important.
Sure.
And there's not as many, just like everywhere, there's not as many manufacturing jobs as there used to be.
Okay. Are there any particular issues that your constituents cared about that representatives from other districts might not understand?
Well, I guess the number one was dredging the Delaware River. That's hard to explain, but that was very important, and not only to the neighborhood and the city, but to the whole region.
And why was that so important?
Like I said, the port is an economic engine in our section, and we talked about the advancement of technology. Ships were getting bigger because they're container ships. All the ships that I started working on, they're gone. They're antiques, and they started with the container ships, and then they started with container ships that were so big they couldn't get through the Panama Canal. That's when they had to widen and deepen the Panama Canal. Those ships couldn't get up the Delaware River. So if we didn't dredge the river, we would have been out of business, because that's the future. The large container ships, the port would have dried up and been a backwater port with probably no business.
Okay. Are there challenges in keeping your constituents informed on issues, things happening in Harrisburg?
No, the things that concern them are basic. Jobs, number one, right? Healthcare, and keeping their families safe and educating their kids. That's the core of, I know it's the core of the 184th district, but I probably would say it's the core of every district.
Has communication between you and your constituents changed over the years?
Well, yeah, but it's still, I know it's changing, and because of the internet and things like that, I'm a little slow on getting into the internet part of it. But the communications we have is the district office being open every day, and the people used to coming there and getting all their problems solved, no matter what it is.
So it's a lot of face-to-face interactions with constituents. Okay. Moving on to your time in the House, did you have any mentors when you began your career here?
It was, like I said, a big change. And of course, my mentor was Senator Fuma, because he's the one, and you talk about a mentor, mentor, that was the one of all. But I got here, and it was, there were no computers on the floor, and paper would fly all over, and they give you a bill that big, and you're going to read that, it's the same day. And it was just trying to get your feet under you to find out how this stuff works. So it's funny, Alan Bukovitz, he's my friend, he was a state rep, and he was sitting in front of me. I didn't know him from Adam, right? And I'm listening, and he's talking, and every time a bill comes up or an issue came up, he seemed to be informed, and on top of it, played out, he was right in everything he was saying. So one day I just reached over and tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around and he looked at me, and I said, "I'm with you." And he went, "What?" It was like I was asking him for his lunch money.
Yeah.
He was like, I said, "I'm with you. I'm trying to find out what's going on around here." So I became good friends with him, and that was helpful when I.
So how did he do it?
He's just smart. He lived politics and new issues.
Sure.
And he had been here, so.
Did you take on a mentor role for anyone as your career stretched on?
I try not to influence people or tell them like I know things. But yeah, I think that over the years with the Philadelphia delegation and other people, I think not overtly, but in subtle ways. I think people have come to me for advice over the years.
What was one of the first things they would always ask you?
What's going on?
How do I find out?
Same thing I did to Buckovitz.
Yeah. Can you explain the role of camaraderie in inter-caucus and intra-caucus or individual relationships?
Well, it's amazing. You come up here. I know everybody says, "Oh, longshoreman," but if you check the archives, I'm the fourth longshoreman that held the seat. It was a seat that centered around the waterfront, so I was involved with that, and so things are still the same, and it's just
sure. Has bipartisanship changed, or how it's viewed changed?
It really has, but well, like I said, when I first got in here, Buckovitz was the mentor, and Fumo got me here. But the reason I stayed here, because of all this South Philly politics, was Johnny Dock from the Electricians Union. He really supported me and over the years and never blinked. And that's how, in the South Philly politics, that's how I stayed here. And then when I got here, Matt Ryan was, he was really helpful to me. He, I come from the waterfront. I'm from South Philly. Roger and Nick would always come down, and Matt wants to see you. I said, Roger, I swear to God, I didn't do anything.
Thought you're in trouble.
He said, you must have did something, because he wants to talk to you. So Matt would always go up and say, look, you can't do this, you can't do that. And Matt was a Republican from Delaware County, and he was very helpful. And then the guy who sent out all those negative pieces against me, John Purcell, that was he became a good friend. And the guy you're interviewing next, the best, John Taylor. He was, I've learned a lot from John Taylor, and what a good guy, and he'll give you a great interview.
Sure, and you're speaking to a lot of legacies in this point, but as far as like newer members coming in, are you seeing the bipartisanship has become a little more contentious, or is it still people?
No, well, I think it was easier back then, but I remember walking down the aisle and sitting in the seat next to Billy Adolph, right? And then, like, everybody's looking, and Bill DeWeese calls me up and says, what are you doing talking to him? I said, what do you care? He said, well, why are you talking to him? I said, it's my friend. I think they wanted to keep it separate so that they had control. But that, that dissipated. Everybody worked together to get the things done that they needed for their district. I think that's what is different. Taylor had mentioned it in his farewell speech, and it's true. If you needed something for your district and you presented it the right way, it got done. I don't know if that exists anymore. And that's probably the most glaring thing that has changed.
Why do you think that's changed?
And I'll give attribution to everybody. I'll quote Billy Adolph, my friend. He said, we were talking, and he said, the thing has changed. When we first got up here, we did, in a session, in 2 years, we did 4 months of politics and 20 months of policy. Now we do 24 months of politics. And I think he's correct. And that you can't do that constantly, because it wears down on you. And I don't think the place is designed to be run that way.
What committees were you involved with during your time in the House, and how did you feel about these roles?
Well, you get 4 or 5 committees when you first get here, so you're running around. But labor was my interest in the committees, and I stayed on that, and then I chaired that for 2 sessions.
And you were also the vice chair of appropriations for a period of time.
I was vice chair of appropriations.
What was it like working with Chairman Dwight Evans?
It was, guess what? It was great because Dwight was running for mayor, and I actually had the chance to run the appropriations committee. Dwight had a lot of campaigning, and he just, he would come in the morning, and then he'd let me run the committee afterwards. It was a great experience.
And what was that like running? Because appropriations, everyone looks to that as kind of one of the leading committees in the House.
Yeah, it is the leading committee, and the hearings are. You could learn a lot in the committee because every department has to come in and make a presentation, and yeah, it was very helpful being the vice chair of appropriations.
Okay. What were the major pieces of legislation in which you were involved, and what was your role in those?
Well, I should have looked before we got here.
I have a couple of notes.
Okay. Well, one thing again, with John Taylor and George Kenny, Marie Letter and Alan Bukovitz, we had a problem with there was a lot of violence in the Philadelphia schools, and we were looking for a way to do that. And Speaker Ryan gave us the ability to go, and we did all the research and he gave us subpoena power, which is very unusual.
Okay.
And we had to use it. I'm sure Taylor will tell you. I mean, I'm longshoreman. These guys are lawyers and legislators for a number of years, but I learned there, boy, people thought that they could just stonewall and not give you the information we needed to get the job done. And I still remember there was a lawyer, and he's saying we don't, that subpoena doesn't mean anything. We're not going to give any information. And I still remember Taylor goes, well, it's about lunchtime. He said, it'll take you 20 minutes to get over to the school district, 20 minutes to get back, 10 minutes to pick up the stuff we're asking you for. We want that information. Now, we're going to break for lunch. It better be here when we get back, or else. And guess what? It was there.
As this might be in reference, I'm sure there's a few bills, but the power of peace officers to arrest without, I have a quote, warrant, writ, rule, or process any person on probation. I guess this is more in probation issues. You had a number on there with seeking to establish a state board of probation parole, empowering peace officers. What led you to that legislation?
Well, again, problems that arise and people bring you these problems, and then this system works if you pay attention and do your job.
Sure. You also have a number of legislations dealing with and I'm sure this means a little bit more to you than it does to me, the 39th Ward of Philadelphia, the Regional Port Authority, the Department of Environmental Protection, DGS. You have a number of bills dealing with working with the lands in that ward. Does that deal with the dredging, or was that something else?
What's that about is when we did the dredging, right? We needed land to build a new modern terminal to do that. And another funny story. So there's land that I found out was riparian land, right? That land belongs to the state. PIDC thought they owned it. They think they own everything. So I put a bill in to transfer the land to the Philadelphia Regional Port Authority so they could build the terminal, right? So it's amazing how things work up here. So Governor Rendell, to his credit, right, New Jersey tried to stop us from dredging, Delaware tried to stop us from dredging, and Rendell stood up when he was governor and said, no, you're not stopping us. Pennsylvania's going to be the sole sponsor. We're going to be responsible for dredging, and he did. So I put the bill in, and I get it passed, right? I get it passed in the Senate, It goes to the governor's desk. Now, I just spent $140 million to get the river dredged. I think I'm doing a good thing. I'm getting the land so we can take advantage of the new ships coming up. He vetoes it. One of only 2 Democratic bills that the Governor Rendell vetoed happened to be one of mine.
And why would he do that?
I still can't get the answer out of him.
Fair enough.
So next session, I go down, I reserved a number for the bill, and I put the bill in. I reserved House Bill 666 was the number of the bill. They didn't want to give it to me. I said, is there any restrictions? They said, no, we just don't like giving it out. No, I want it. Give it to me. So I go, I spend another, I don't know, over a year, 18 months, trying to get that passed. And what I did, because I started to learn how the system worked from being here enough time, Rendell, he didn't want it. He was fighting me again. And what I did was I amended every land transfer in the House and Senate for 18 months. Everybody was screaming at me, everybody. And I kept doing it. I wouldn't let it out. And then finally, the Senate screaming, everybody screaming, they want their land transfers. So Rendell says, all right, Bill, go ahead, pull off all your amendments and I'll run the bill. I went, not for nothing, Governor, but run the bill. And then my amendments don't mean anything. So we did. There's another funny story I get.
Please.
So I get it passed, right? So I tell my secretary, call over, get a bill signing, right? She calls and says, guess what? No bill signing for you. I said, all right, go get me a pen card. When you pass a bill, they give you the pen. I said, get me the pen card. I said, get me a copy of the bill with the governor's signature on it, right? And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, you'll see. So here my mummer connections come. I said to the mummers, because they're talented, I said, can you find me a picture of Ed Rendell signing something? They said, yeah. And they did. So I got this big cardboard cutout, right, of Ed Rendell signing the bill. The Port Authority people were up for something else. I grabbed them, right? And Rendell was already out. It was during Corbett. I ran into the governor's reception room, put his picture up there, and had everybody set. And had people take pictures. It was perfect. It looked like he did it. So I sent him and John Esty a copy of the picture. Thanks for the bill signing.
Do you still have that?
I still, it's sitting on my top of my bureau up on the office.
We'll have to get a picture of that. That's incredible.
You got to stop up the office. If I didn't tell you that story, you couldn't tell the difference.
That's awesome. What other memorable events happened in the House during your term? Any other stories you'd like to tell? I mean, there was a lot of upheaval. I mean, the big one that everyone talks about is the bonus gate of 2007, 8, 9. And you lived through that, and that took a lot of people with it. Is there anything you'd like to comment about that experience?
No, I mean, that's...
The environment of the House during the time?
It was, it was bad. It was, not pleasant, but this goes on. Everybody survived it, and it went on. And I guess the outcomes were what it was.
Okay. Who were the memorable figures about which stories you were often told? Were there any legacies whenever you came into the House that you kept hearing about?
Yeah, they kept talking about Jim Mandarino, but he passed by the time I got here. But I did have a chance to serve with his daughter, Kathy.
Okay. And how was that?
It was good. Kathy, yeah, smart person.
And what major changes occurred in the House during your time? I understand cameras were installed for the first time during your tenure. People point to that as a large change.
Yeah. I guess it all did is extend the time we were on the floor. I guess it is true that people wanted to get on the floor. But I don't think that's true anymore. I don't think they play to the cameras anymore. It's just it's just another way that we do business. I don't think people play to it. When they first put it in, people would get up who never spoke. But I don't think that's true.
People are used to it now.
People are used to it. It's just part of the normal procedure, and it hasn't. I don't think it has any effect now as it did when they first put them in.
Sure. What aspect of your job as a House member did you enjoy the most or the least?
I tell you the truth, there's not much that I didn't enjoy. I mean, to be able to accomplish things that we accomplished and make a big difference in the neighborhood and in the district. The district is doing much better than it was 26 years ago. That's good. Of course, the time away from home and family, but I tried to make every basketball game, every baseball game, and.
Sure. These are the more reflective questions, in case.
I should leave then.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Just how would you like to be remembered as you leave the House?
Just somebody did their job, didn't make a big deal out of it, tried to stay even keel and have goals and accomplish them, and
very well.
And I think, I tell you the truth, I think I did.
What is your advice for current and future members?
I don't like to give advice. I mean, everybody, you just, go roll along with the punches and figure out your own way. But I think the advice is, do what I did. Make a lot of friends. You come up here, you make friends from people from all over the state. Like I said, I'm a kid from South Philly, worked on the waterfront, and I came up here and met some great people. We were talking before we went on the air. Two people that I came in and just became friends with, and that we had nothing, they were from the Scranton area, I was from South Philadelphia, but Tom Tighe, who I think is, man, I'm telling you, one of the best people I ever met. Shame he didn't have a chance to rise to leadership, but what a good guy. Soul of the earth guy who was just straight all the time. He was a combat lieutenant in Vietnam and Marine Corps, awarded the Silver Star. He says you don't win things. There was no competition, but he was really. I looked up to him and learned a lot from him. It's just, and that's the steady, low-key pace. I guess that's where I got it from. This guy, he was amazing. And the other guy we talked about, Gaynor Cawley, boy, up here you work all the time and you get gets into a routine. But Gaynor made it. He made it amazing. It was a good time, and he did serious work. But boy, he made it. The nights you're up here away from home and nothing to do and boredom. If you were around Gaynor, you really enjoyed the night.
Good. Well, that's all I have. If you have any last comments, we'd like to give the member the last word.
No. This is enjoyable. Thank you for doing it, and
sure.
Hopefully things will go out the way we planned, and everything will continue to get better. I know there's going to be probably budget fights will continue forever, and that's one thing I won't miss. But I think it's serious. I think next session is going to be a serious time, and I wish everybody the best of luck, and just stay together and do the best for the Commonwealth. And I think we'll continue to rise and be better for it.
All right. Thank you for being with me here today.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.